Okay, welcome. It's Friday. It's 1 o'clock. That makes it Facebook Live time. And today we're talking about the comma splice error. And I have a couple of brothers here to help me out and help me to show a little bit of what a class would look like. And it's just so much easier for you to understand what I mean when we can interact a little bit. So we're going to I'll just start by telling you a little bit more about myself. My name is Teresa, and I am a language arts mentor. And I have students from grade 6 to grade 12 in my classes taking writing tutoring or full language arts in a Christian worldview setting. And each one of those students is going to be challenged to dream big and to make plans to reach their goals. And they get accountability to help them along that process. And we do it all hand in hand with writing and language arts so that students can learn to work through a process of growth mindset and learn that even though they don't know it yet, that doesn't mean they can't know it. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. It just means they're on a process to learn something new. And today we're learning something about punctuation. So we're fixing comma splice errors. So I guess we have to start with what a comma splice error is. Do either of you know what a comma splice error is? It's okay if you don't.
It's when you use a comma to link two independent clauses instead of a semicolon.
Oh, very good. I'm not even going to teach the semicolon today. I'm going to teach the beginning way to connect them. Okay, so it's connecting two independent clauses with a comma. So as soon as we say that, that leaves the questions. Well, what is an independent clause? And so if we don't know what an independent clause is, we're kind of stuck because, how can we know we're doing it? How can we know we're making the error if we don't know what an independent clause is? So how would you define an independent clause? Do you know what that is? Any ideas? It's okay if you don't know.
Any idea, Jonathan?
A sentence?
Oh, you're right. It's a sentence. It's a sentence that can stand alone all by itself. And sentences that can stand alone all by themselves, they need three things. Do you happen to know what they need? Here's a hint. It's not a capital and a period. Although they do need capitals and periods, but that's not what makes them sentences. They can stand alone and by themselves, and they need a verb, a subject, and a complete thought. Okay, so here we go again. We have these words. We have to make sure we understand what the words are. So you didn't know you were signing on for a grammar lesson, did you? No, I didn't think so. People don't like to sign up for grammar lessons. I don't know why. I did have a masterclass for grammar though one time, and I had quite a number of students sign up for 4 hours of grammar and punctuation, and that was actually a lot of fun. Okay, and I'm not just saying that because I was the teacher. So let's start with what's a verb? How would you define a verb? Any ideas?
Verbs are actions.
Actions. Okay, so some people tell me that they are actions or that they're the action word in the sentence. They're actually that plus something else. They are also actions or states of being or having. So here we go again. What am I talking about a state of being or having? That's kind of a weird thing to say. So a state of being would be in a sentence like, I am hungry. That's a sentence, right? What's the verb?
It would be hungry.
Oh, it's actually not. Hungry describes what I am. Am is the verb. Okay, it's a state of being verb. So there we are. That's exactly, and I'm sorry if I baited you. I wasn't trying to. So a state of being is, if you've taken any other languages ever, a state of being would be like the to be verb. And so it's one of the first verbs we learn when we learn another language because it's so common, right? We need to like know what it means. So anytime there's words like am, are, is, will be, would have, should be, have been, could have been. So all of these are states of being. And then we have states of having. So I have a dog. What's the verb there?
Have.
Have, right. Very good. So have is a verb, but it's not really an action, right? It's a state of owning something, right? So
Right.
that's kind of how we talk about it. So we say a state of being or having. Some people even add a state of knowing. So I know my times tables. Well, know isn't really an action. It's a state of having knowledge. So some people add knowing here. So I guess what we need to know is how we can recognize a verb. Because if verbs aren't always actions, then we need to know how we can recognize them. And here's how. Anytime that you can put a pronoun in front of a word, so a pronoun is a word that can be used in the place of a name. If you can do that, or you can put it, or the word someone, or the dog, or something like that, in front of it, it's a verb. So if you can put I, you, he, she, we, you, they, it, one, someone, Bob, the dog. Okay, if you can put any one of those words in front of it, it makes it, we know it's a verb. It doesn't make it a verb, it is a verb. Okay, that's the best way that I have to tell you how to recognize a verb. And we also have verbs sometimes come in verb phrases. So there might be more than one. Like we have could have had. Those all come together. But for this, it doesn't really matter that much. So sentences have verbs and they have subjects. All right. So what is the subject of a sentence? I'm going to give you a hint. It is not the topic. In English, we use the words subject and topic interchangeably. What subject do you have left to work on today? Social studies. But that's not the way we work when it comes to grammar. So we need to know what the subject of the sentence is, which is not the topic. Do you have any ideas what that would mean? What the subject is?
A person, place, or thing.
It is a noun. It's a person, place, or thing, but it is the person, place, or thing that is doing the verb. And I even added idea. All right, that seems strange. But person, place, or thing is how we define a noun. But we need to expand our idea of what a noun is to include ideas. Things like democracy, freedom. Because we could have a sentence and we could say, freedom is of the utmost importance. Well, is the verb. What is acting on is? What is? What is? Democracy is. Democracy is the subject of the sentence. So we have to like just kind of include that little bit in there. So it's the person, place, thing, or idea that's doing the verb, or being, or having. So how about you open your chat? Do you know where your chat is? And you just pop in a few sentences for me, just some independent clauses. So they don't have to be long, just short, simple sentences. What else? Huh. I'm not going to do that one. Here's why. I love that sentence. That one's really interesting. I came, I saw, I conquered, said who? Roman Emperor?
Julius Caesar.
Julius Caesar. Okay, because it is punctuated with commas, and that is a different thing. That is called internal balance in your sentence. So you can get away with really interesting things after you know the rules. So I love that one. The dog went to town. I know, it's kind of boring. Okay, a couple more. The cat looked out the window. Koala bears are not bears. I like dogs better than cats. Am I gonna get in trouble for that? Probably. All right. My cat person is not here. I have a student who just loves cats, and he's not here today, so I guess I'm okay, unless you're big cat lovers. Okay, so these are just examples of simple sentences. These are all independent clauses. Now we could take these independent clauses and we could make them more complicated by adding extra pieces to them, adding more information to them. We could say the brown dog hurried to town. We could say the old cat looked through the dirty window at the people passing down the street. So we could add all kinds of things, but we really only have one independent clause, even if we add a lot of extra pieces to it. We have one idea. So this is an independent clause. Now we can get to comma splices. Okay, so here are some comma splice examples. So let's start with this one. Koala bears are not bears, they are marsupials. So first of all, how do we recognize that this is a comma splice error? If you had this in your writing, how would you recognize that it was an error? Any ideas? The first thing I would do, if I didn't know, is I would mark all the verbs and subjects. So let's mark the verbs in bold and we'll underline the subjects. So first of all, koala bears are not bears, they're marsupials. Do you see any verbs in there? Oh, these are the hard verbs. I picked the hard ones. Gonna be quiet. All right. Are. Okay. They are both are. We have two verbs. Koala bears are not bears. They are marsupials. And the subject of the sentence. So who is koala bears? Koala bears are. And here we say they are. So they is the subject of this sentence. So Will and Jonathan, do you see how we have two separate sentences here because we have subject and a verb and a subject and a verb? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so that means we cannot connect it with a comma. As soon as we see a comma that connects two independent clauses, we know that we have an error. It's called the comma splice error. So we can't do that. Now, you said earlier we could put a semicolon. We could put a semicolon. I'm not going to do that today. There are rules about semicolons, and it is usually about your intention when you write it. So it's kind of complicated. So I'm not going to go there today. But there's one other thing that I am going to teach today about how we can connect sentences without using semicolon. So here's how we can connect. We can connect one, whoops, let's get that on the left. We can connect it with a connector word. Or we don't have to connect it at all. We can put a period. Now, we wouldn't want a whole paragraph of these sentences connected with, or not connected, like all divided up, right? With periods. That might be great in like grade 1 or 2, right? Koala bears are not bears, period. They are marsupials, period. They like to eat, right? Period. They just every sentence, one independent clause, period, one independent clause, period. It gets kind of boring, right? It's boring and it also sounds very choppy. So it's not what we want to do when we start to get into higher level writing. So we could put a period because sometimes that's just fine. So we could put a period, but we could also use a connector word. Can you think of a connector word that we could put between here that would connect those two sentences? What word could we put in between? Koala bears are not bears. But they are marsupials. Very good. All right. So do we use a comma? Do you know? What's your gut say? Do we put a comma here with this but or no?
No.
No. Okay, excellent. I'm gonna just go like this and make it blue. And we're gonna see if we need to put a comma or not. Have you ever heard of the fanboys words?
No, I haven't.
Okay, some people call them fanboys, some people call them boy fans. And I'm just gonna put a graphic here to help us to know when we need a comma and when we do not need a comma. So first of all, the first question we ask is it a fanboys? So I guess we have to talk about what fanboys are. So let's talk about fanboys. I call them fanboys, and it's an acronym. So it's the words are for, and, nor, but, or, yet. So these seven words, and we memorize these seven. It's really, really important. And the reason we memorize these seven is because these seven have a special rule, and all of the other connector words in the world have a different rule. I shouldn't say all of them. All of them except, however, moreover, inasmuch, there's a few that are kind of strange. But most of the other ones have a different rule. So there's basically two rules, and then the however rule. So the fanboys we memorize because it's so much easier to memorize 7 than it is to memorize, I don't know how many other connector words there are in the world, like 80, 100, 120 or something. There's a lot of them. So we memorize these 7. So, oops, we have the word but. Is but a fanboy?
Yes.
Yes. So let's look at our algorithm here because some of us need to see things visually. Is it a fanboys? Yes. So we follow the line to the yes side. And then it says, look after the fanboys. Is there a subject and a verb? So let's go back and let's look. After the but, over here, do we have a verb and a subject? Yes, we do. We have a subject here and a verb here. So let's look back down at the algorithm. Yes, we have a subject. Yes, we have a verb. Yes, we use a comma. Okay, now the big question is, where's that comma go? Let's go before or after the but. Any idea?
Before the but?
It goes before, yeah, before the but. So because we have a fanboys and because there is a subject and a verb, then we definitely need a comma. Okay, we're gonna try it again. Here we go, different example. Trying to think of an example that we could use without but. That one's a but one. That one's a but one. Okay. Let me see. Let's see if we can come up with one. The dog went to town. The dog went to town. The dog looked out, or the cat looked out the window. Okay, what's the first way that we can change this? The very easiest way that we could change this to make it not have an error. Actually, I guess before that, we should make sure we have an error. Can we find the subject and the verb? Subject is dog. What's the verb here?
To.
Went.
Oh,
Went. Yes, very good, because that's the action. Went. And where did the dog go? To town. So that's just extra bits. We don't have to worry about those. The cat looked out the window. Which part of this is the verb?
Look.
Looked. Right. Looked
Yep.
out the window. And who looked?
The
The
cat.
cat.
The cat. I think technically just cat is the subject and the is the article, but it really doesn't matter. The cat looked out the window. So we have a complete thought here. The dog went to town, and a complete thought here. The cat looked out the window. So we cannot connect it with a comma. So what's the easiest way that we can fix this problem?
Make it 2 sentences.
Yeah, just make it 2 sentences.
Yep.
Sometimes that works. Sometimes that's all we have to do, especially if we've had some really big, long sentences. Okay, the dog went to town. The cat looked out the window. If we wanted to fix this with a connector word, what connector word could we use in there? The dog went to town. The cat looked out the window. What word could we put in the middle that would connect it?
Well.
While, yeah. Yeah, that's right. And we could say but. All right, so we'll do it again. But the cat looked out the window. So here we have a connector word. We're going to make it blue. And here we have a connector word. I'll make that one blue. So this sentence here with the while. So while is our connector word. Let's go down. Oh, let's review the fanboys. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Is that connector word a fanboys?
No.
No.
No. So we follow to the no line. No, then no comma. That easy. Super easy. No fanboys, no comma. So we don't ever put a comma before while. That's strange, right? Because most everyone would just stick a comma. We don't ever put a comma before because. Yeah, I know. People do it all the time. You don't even think about it. Okay, let's take one last look at that same sentence and see how we can rearrange it. Now, there's this special thing that happens when we use connector words that are not fanboys. We can take the last half that starts with the connector word, and we can move it to the beginning of the sentence. And then we can put this first one at the end. Change this to a capital. While the cat looked out the window, the dog went to town. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yep. It makes perfect sense. But now, here's the trick, comma here. That's tricky. All right. So then we need a comma because we have changed our sentence around. If you change the order, you end up with an introductory clause. So it's an introductory independent clause. Well, I guess it's a subordinate clause because it has a while, but that's okay. You don't need to know all the grammar. We have an independent clause at the beginning. We have an introduction to this sentence. Whenever you have an introduction to the sentence, it might be a word, it might be a phrase, or it might be an entire clause. We always put a comma. So we just have to remember that sometimes the while is in the middle, and sometimes it's at the beginning. And if it's at the beginning, we have to put a comma. Okay, the dog went to town, but the cat looked out the window. Can you remember what the fanboys are?
For and
Nor,
Nor. But.
or, yet, so. Good job. You got about half of them. That's
Yep.
pretty good. So, is but a fan, boys?
Yes.
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 Yes, it is. So we follow the yes, and it says yes. So then we look after the fanboys. Is there a subject and a verb? There has to be both. So here's the but. We're going to look after it. Do we have a subject? Yes. Do we have a verb? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you remember? Then, yes, use a comma. Right there, we put a comma. That's pretty easy, right?
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah, it is pretty easy. Okay, so one thing I love about this little algorithm is it follows the same words. So, is it a fanboy? Yes. Is there a subject and a verb? Yes. Then yes, a comma. If you say no to any one of the questions, then it's no comma. So it's a yes, 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 or as soon as you hit a no, that means no comma. So it's really easy to remember. That really helps. Okay, do you have any questions about comma splices?
I don't. Not
Nope.
right now.
Oh, excellent. And do you think that you could probably do this now that we've gone over it together?
Yeah.
I hope so. The hardest
Yeah.
part
Yeah.
is looking at our own writing and recognizing that it's a comma splice, right?
Right.
This is why it's really important when we're editing to read slowly out loud. Because if we read these, there's the example, and we read, koala bears are not bears, comma, they are marsupials, period. As soon as we get to that comma in our comma splice error, we should always be asking ourselves, why is there a comma here? Do I need a comma here? Or if we don't have any punctuation, we would have a run-on sentence. And so we would be reading and we would think, koala bears are not bears, they are marsupials. That feels kind of like squished together, or maybe you'll read it correctly. Koala bears are not bears, they're marsupials. And you realize when you read it slowly that you pause there. And when you pause, that tells you not that you need a comma, but it tells you that probably something is going on in that space that you need a connector word, or you need a period, maybe you need a comma. So don't ever think that just because you pause when you read something that you need a comma, because you also pause every time you come to a period. So if it were true, then we would have like all these extra commas. So that's my bonus piece of information for today. So thanks so much for coming, Will and Jonathan, and thank you for coming live and checking out this video. If you're here, go ahead and put in the comments, tell me, yes, this helped me, or I have questions, because I want to answer them. If your student is struggling with punctuation, tell me what their questions are, because I'd love to do another live just like this, and your student can be in my class and they can learn it right alongside me in a live on Friday. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for coming, Will and Jonathan. I appreciate you being here. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye now.
Bye.